agency side. Kyran Curry is Director Sovereign Ratings at S&P Global Ratings, and we have Kyran with us. Kyran, thanks very much for your time. Appreciate you being here. The federal budget yesterday, does it change or at least provide an impetus for rating agencies to give the central government's finances a relook in terms of rating action, etc.? Have you already done it?
It certainly does. We're following very closely the government's continuing commitment in this budget, we think, to stabilise its fiscal position over the medium term. And we look in particular to the government's new fiscal targets, such that it's expecting to lower its fiscal deficit to 3% of GDP by 2020, and then, moreover, move to lower its general government debt stock to around 60% of GDP by 2023. This says to us that the government continues to be committed to consolidating its fiscal position as conditions allow, and this is very important to, we think, improving the medium-term credit quality of the Indian sovereign.
Hi, Kyran. Good afternoon. You say that this illustrates the government's commitment to improving the fisc. Is that sort of an indication sufficient for you? What more indicators would you look at before you give a serious rethink to the India rating?
I think what we would need to see, for a start, it's very important that we see policy anchors like this to guide fiscal consolidation going forward. But the test is often in its implementation, and it'll be very important for us to see the government moving along this path that it's outlined in this budget, such that over the next few years, if we start seeing meaningful fiscal consolidation, such that the fiscal deficits come down lower than what they currently are, and the debt stock continues to move lower, then, as we've been saying publicly, this is something that could lend some upside to the ratings, assuming everything else remains equal. But, as we see it, this is a continuation of the government's commitment to reform efforts. It's not just in fiscal policy, but we see a range of other initiatives, including in addressing India's infrastructure shortfalls. So this is a very important budget for us.
Right. Kyran, when you say that you'd want to see the fisc actually getting consolidated, is that you'd wait for it to actually happen? Is that because over the last 3 years, in terms of this has been deferred? I mean, 2 out of 3 times the government has deferred sticking to the path. I mean, they've postponed it. They said we'll get to it, we'll get it done, but not this year.
Yes, correct. That's absolutely true. We see many governments in this region, including a range of India's close peers, saying that they will move to stabilise their fiscal positions, but often if, say, economic conditions weaken, they sometimes defer those plans. It's important for us to see a further track record developing of the Modi government remaining committed to, in particular, lowering its debt stock. That really says to us that the government is serious about restoring its fiscal buffers, such that, say, if growth disappoints again in the near term, the government has sufficient flexibility to respond to provide stimulus should it need to. And at the moment, we see the government's ability to do that as being moderately constrained, given the size of the debt stock compared to peers.
All right. We will leave it there, Kyran. Thanks very much for your time. Appreciate you joining in with that quick perspective.